Hi, this is Sue for Parkies and Me, My Journey with Parkinson's. So recently I've talked about how I've had a coaching session with a coach for my bowls, and I was sort of looking forward to it, but I was also very, very nervous about the whole idea. Nervous that my body would not cope with the fact that we were playing all day. Just generally nervous, really, really wanting to be able to play this game of bowls that I love well, because like a lot of people, I do not like doing something if I can't do it well. So I had this coach, and she was very much a my way or the highway kind of a lady, and we just didn't gel. And she would sort of talk to us. There was about half a dozen of us that she was coaching, and she would talk to us about these are the non-negotiables. You have to do this and you have to do that. And somewhere in my little brain goes, I don't do well when people tell me what I have to do. And I certainly don't. One of the things that I found difficult when I was working as a social worker towards the end there, they brought in a new system where you had to do certain things. You had to have a student. You had to note things in a prescribed manner in a computer program. And, you had to kind of tick boxes and all that sort of stuff when working with people as a social worker. And that didn't gel well with me. I've always been quite instinctive. I don't go in with a piece of paper and say, I just need to ask you these 95 questions or whatever they are. It seems like thousands. And I would just talk to people, and I wouldn't have that sort of strict, overly structured approach. So I needed to do things with my patients, with their family, that was right for me. And everybody's an individual, so what works for one person definitely may not work for somebody else. So getting back to the coaching, so yes, she was saying that there was non-negotiables, things that you had to do that you couldn't kind of challenge. And I found it really difficult. The other people that were playing, even if they were close in age to me, they didn't have a body with Parkinson's. They didn't have a body that was recovering from a major back surgery. They didn't have a body that was recovering from knee surgery. And I had all of that going on. And, I went into that coaching session, or those coaching sessions, with an open mind, I hope. Well, I think I did. And I was willing to be guided and supported to make some changes to make my game better. But the very first time I laid my hands on a bowl, she turned around and told me that I needed to use a bowling arm. And that's a bit of apparatus that helps you to bowl without having to bend down. And I very definitely said to her, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not willing to do that. I need to try and do it without those sort of aids, because I know that at some stage I will need something to help me, but I'm not ready to disable myself just now. And so she didn't really support me after that. She seemed to kind of wander off, and talking to one of the other bowlers that were there that was learning, I said, this is like being back at school. I remember being in a maths class, and the teacher would talk to the bright kids in the class and say, can you do this problem? And they would work it out, and they'd be nodding. And so she'd say, oh, that's good, you've got that concept, so we'll move on. And then there was probably me and quite a few others that were sitting there shaking our head going, no, it hasn't made any sense to me. Sorry, not getting it. And she would just teach for the bright kids. And that's what this coach did, and it very much didn't work for me. So anyway, after I'd sort of finished the coaching and we'd done the tournament, so after we'd finished the training and we had a tournament the following week, which I'd put my name down for, and I played the tournament, and then came through a questionnaire about the coaching. How did we find it work for us? So I looked at this thing, and I know from experience that a lot of people will complain verbally about this wasn't right or that wasn't right, they weren't happy with whatever, and they got the opportunity for feedback with a feedback form like I received. And I've looked at what they've said, and I said, but you weren't happy with this, and you said that this bit wasn't good enough, etc. And they said, oh, what's the point? I've finished the training now. It's not going to make any difference to me. I'll just tick the boxes and say, yeah, it was okay. I don't like to do that. And one of the reasons I don't like to do that is because for a time I worked in a job called the Health and Disability Advocacy Service. and it deals with anybody that has any concerns or complaints in relation to receiving a health service. And so I worked for them for a brief time, and one of the things that stuck with me was somebody said that whenever they talked to somebody who had a concern about a service that they'd received in relation to their health and well-being, that they needed to give some feedback to the provider of that service. And the reason that they said that was it shouldn't be looked on as a negative thing to give that sort of feedback about something that didn't go right. And giving back honest feedback, it gives an opportunity for the provider of that service to look at what the response has been and consider for themselves, there seems to be something that didn't go so well. Why didn't it go so well? And then they have the ability to look into what the situation arose from and to remedy that situation, so hopefully it wouldn't happen again. It may be that it needed some staff training. It may be that a different approach might work better, or they have to add something into the service, or whatever it might be. By registering a concern about the way that a service was delivered, it gives the provider the opportunity to make that service better. So you're actually doing them a favour. So I filled in this form and gave some honest feedback, and one of the things I said was she would benefit from some training on working with people with disabilities. Now, when you look at me now, or at the moment, I think I'm not obviously a person with a disability, and many people that I've worked with in the past that have had brain damage, that have had strokes, that have had brain bleeds, they may present really well with all the social niceties, but they are disabled in that they don't necessarily fully understand what's said to them. They may have trouble processing information, which is one of my things. They may not be able to articulate what they want and need. And those are hidden disabilities that on looking at a person you couldn't necessarily see that they actually had any issues. If somebody's in a wheelchair, it's obvious they have some issues with mobilising independently. So having to work with various people, there is no one size fits all. There is no one person that is the same as everybody else. When providing assistance and coaching to somebody, you need to find out where they are at and provide the service according to what their needs are. So after I gave the feedback, I was contacted by, actually I was sort of tapped on the shoulder because we had a few drinks after the tournament, and 3 of the coaches came up to me individually and expressed their concern. They had read my feedback and they were concerned that I didn't get the assistance that I really needed. So then they were asking what they could do. And one of the senior coaches, actually, he was the last one, he came up to me and he said, "Sue, I know things didn't go as well for you with the coaching as you would have liked, and we want you to be happy. We want you to get something out of this coaching." He said, "I'm prepared, if you'll come to the Parklands Bowling Club, which is my club, I'm happy to give you some one-on-one coaching." And I sort of went, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't really, this is kind of out of the blue. I hadn't really thought of it." And he said, "Well, look, we really want you to get some benefit out of the coaching, which we feel as a team, the coaching team, that you didn't have that opportunity that maybe some of the others in your group did." And so he said, "I'm not going to push it, but I'll give you my number, and if you want to proceed, just let me know." So I thanked him. He gave me his card. I had his cell phone number, and I went home and I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, I need to give this coaching another crack. So on Tuesday this week at 4:30, I turned up at Parklands Bowling Club to see this lovely guy, and it was the best thing I could have done. He got me to bowl a few bowls without the jack, so that I wasn't necessarily aiming for that, just to work out how my delivery was, what ways we might need to tweak it, and to help me basically get on track. So I bowled a few bowls, and we looked at my stance and that sort of thing, and sort of with each bowl he sort of said, "Try this or try that." He helped me to find the best way to hold the bowl. The other coach that was there actually picked up one of my bowls and said, gosh, your bowls are really slippery. He says, oh, you need to put some stuff on. There's a thing called Grippo that helps make it a bit grippier, which makes sense given the name. So he said, put some on there and rub it in, not with a cloth, with your hand, so you get some on your hand. So that stops that being too slick as well. So I put that stuff on, and it did make a world of difference. It's just those little things that make a difference. And the other coach, he got me doing various things. He put some spots on the green that I had to sort of run through with my bowl to get the line right, and just various other things. And then sort of when I'd done a few deliveries, the usual way that I did them, he said to me, how do you think that went? How do you think your delivery was? And I said, a bit wobbly. I said, I think I'm a bit wobbly when I step out and I rush things. And so he got me to take a breath, stand there, focus, get myself centered, breathe, relax, focus, visualize. And it made a huge difference. I felt more stable, I felt more able, I felt that I was able to have more control and consistency. And, in an hour, he taught me more than in 2 full-day sessions with this other lady. And I was so pleased. He said to me that I didn't need a bowling arm. He said that I just needed to practice and that he felt I would be okay. And how did I feel training was going? So he was asking for feedback as we were working together. And it was really good. It gave me an opportunity when he sort of asked after a couple of bowls how I felt they went, that I could sort of think about it and say, oh, actually, yeah, that felt better, or no, I'm still a bit wobbly. What can we do about that? And we talked it through the whole time. And it made a huge difference. It's made a huge difference to my confidence, and I think a huge difference to my ability to play the game well. So I'm wrapped. And he just did some simple things where he tuned into how I was doing things, what I wanted to do, and what I was able to do. And I really appreciated that. So he's actually offered me another coaching session, same time next week. And I've said that I'll do it. And I'm really pleased that he's made these offers to coach me for a couple of times, to get me back on track. When you get somebody who knows that I've got Parkinson's, who knows that I'm recovering from a back operation, who knows that I've had a knee operation as well, and works with me to say, hey, how can we help you to bowl given all these variables? What can we do to make you feel more confident, feel more stable, and feel like you can play this game well? And that was a huge thing for me. He wanted to find out what was best for me. And I think that's important, because if there weren't people like him for any of us with Parkinson's, when we want to do something, if they just said, this is the way we do it, it might preclude us from doing things that we might really enjoy or might really want to do or maybe need to do. That, we need people around us that say, okay, what is it that you want to achieve? How do you think you can achieve it? How can I help? And is it helping when they've been teaching you for a bit? He would ask me after every couple of bowls, he'd say, how do you think that was? How's that feeling? Is it feeling better? And it made a huge difference. I came away from there feeling much, much more confident that I'll be able to give it a good go at playing bowls. So yeah, we don't need to be made to conform, to try to achieve an environment that is not made for those of us who have mobility issues, who have conditions that you can't necessarily see. We need to be worked with as individuals on our individual needs, and I think I've found somebody that can help me with that. So anyway, this has been Sue for Parkies and Me, my journey with Parkinson's. Kia kaha, be brave, be strong, be you.